The hour is upon us. If I could go ahead and call our meeting to order, please. If I could ask everyone to stand for a moment of silence. And we will ask Mr. Stone to lead us in the pledge of flag.
Pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, shall we call the roll?
Mrs. Hamper? Present. Mr. Hampton?
Present.
Mr. Lesby?
Here.
Mrs. Lesby Mitchell?
Here.
Mrs. Tingle Sames? Here. Mr. Showalter?
Here.
Mr. Stone?
Here.
Mrs. Tackett?
Here.
Thank you. We definitely have a quorum for full house. We continue to work on the room. Chase and his staff and Andrew continue to work on the room. They've tried elevating the speaker now to help folks at home to hear us better. So we continue to tweak this to make it work as well as we can. A few more people are with us tonight. It seems to work in that regard. So little by little, we're getting there with that. Each of you should have a copy of the minutes of our last regularly scheduled meeting. See if there are any corrections or additions to those. If not, I'll entertain a motion that they be approved.
Motion made.
Thank you.
Second.
And second. Thank you, Will. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Minutes are approved. In your packet, you should have also received a copy of our latest check register. If you indicate you received that, thank you. Under public comments, I'm delighted that not only are we back together, but we actually have some folks with us for public comment tonight, and some pretty important opportunities for the council. Two organizations have signed up to speak with the council tonight, just in the order in which they're signed in. We have Elizabeth's Village and the Amen House. So, Elizabeth's Village.
Where would you like us to stand? Where's the best? Just right here? Is that
Andrew,
good? I don't know.
Andrew, where should,
I actually can see them right there.
Oh,
you can see them right there?
so right here is
Okay.
good. Okay, okay, perfect. Well, we're with Elizabeth's Village, and my name is Candace, and this is Emily. I'm the director, and Emily is our program developer. And I know everyone on the council, I think, is very familiar with us, but we're just gonna run through really quickly what our programs do. We like to come annually and update you all on what our organization is doing, how our programs are doing, and how we are moving forward, because we are always trying to think of ways that we can better serve our community and grow, and not just stay stagnant and continue to offer the same things because our community is constantly changing. And so I was just we're gonna update you all today. If you wanna hit the first slide. Our three main programs real quickly are our Elizabeth Village Transitional Home, and that's on College Street downtown. That's been open since 2013 and serving women and children who are experiencing literal homelessness here in Scott County. That home was open through the pandemic. We did have to cut back on capacity, but we were able to keep it open and serving. And then we are, still serving post-pandemic there at our home downtown. So, next one. Our Elizabeth Village Homeless Prevention Outreach Program started in 2017 as a response to women and children calling who are at risk of becoming homeless. So that program works with families to prevent loss of housing. And that was a really critical program through COVID-19. We didn't know that we were going to need it as much as we did, but it was the most used program we had. We also gained Tbra, Tenant-Based Rental Assistance, which was a federal grant that allows us to do a lot more with the financial assistance that we can do. And then this program also oversees K-Count each year. Normally that happens in January. This year KHC rescheduled it to February. So we did do that in February. We're the county rep for that, and we were able to report the number of homeless here in Scott County for the state. The next one is our Domestic Violence Advocacy Program. This is our newest program, started in 2020, and we started it in response to needing services for domestic violence victims here in our community. As you all know, our main goal is to open a shelter, but this was a program that we could at least start serving victims where we are now. And so our advocate can meet immediate needs such as advocating in the courtroom, case management, helping with paperwork such as EPOs, things like that. So she's able to do that from our office as an outreach program. So Emily's going to talk.
So we've submitted a request for $265,000 on March 25th. That request was meant so that the $15,000 would be a $5,000 increase in our general funding request. And then ARPA funds would be $250,000, which would fund our capital project. I know that since we submitted that request, there have been some conversations about what that could look like and that it might not just be one check. So we're very flexible and willing to do what is best for council with that. And yes, the general funding request would just go ahead and fund our current programs, which Candace spoke about.
Yes, so our More Than a Number campaign, which we have launched this year, is called the More Than a Number campaign, if you'll hit the slide, I think, because I know that we have been diving into data and trying to track services and programs and do research on domestic violence and domestic violence programs across the state. And sometimes I think it's easy for us to sort of forget what we're doing in a way and just be so immersed in charts and graphs and data. And so we named it More Than a Number because we constantly want to be reminded that each person that we are looking at data for, each person that we are talking about serving or who we have served is a person who felt like they were in danger and could not be in their home and needed resources to leave safely. And so we want to keep remembering that these are women and children in our community who deserve to feel safe and be housed that are not currently there right now. And so that campaign is one that we are going to use to open our domestic violence shelter, which we did purchase in January. So this property is downtown Georgetown, and we will eventually be renovating it into an 18-bed facility with an additional emergency room. So the program will be set up to meet emergency and long-term needs for domestic violence victims. This property is on a double lot, so the current building that you see in the picture will be renovated and used as bedrooms and bathrooms, and then an additional building will be built and connected on the double lot, which will have all of the living spaces like the living room, dining room, kitchen, offices for staff, things like that. The shelter will be staffed 24/7, so it will be another level of security that our transitional home doesn't have with like surveillance and things like that. And we feel really great about it being downtown and being near the police department, so that way women can access resources, and if off chance something were to happen, which statistically it doesn't happen at shelters, but the responding officers can get there quickly and be able to help with those needs. The campaign goal is $1.5 million. We are raising that much for the renovations for the building and the addition, but then we're also raising our first 3 years of operating expenses because we would like to have a very firm start and give us time to get those ongoing revenue streams going before we can have a sustainable program. So we wanted to go ahead and raise those first 3-year expenses in the capital campaign. We have already raised 10% of our goal, so we're off to a great start. I know in our campaign brochure in your council packets, you have the electronic version. We have the paper version if anybody would like it. There is a small typo on the back that says we've already raised our goal, which would be nice, but we have raised 10% of our goal, so just take away a 0. So we're off to a great start, but we need our community support to get all the way there.
Next.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we know that you all are inundated with requests. You all have a lot of needs here in Scott County, so we do not take that lightly. But that is why we're here today, because we turn women away from shelter each day. People call seeking resources, needing shelter in Scott County, and we're unfortunately not able to meet that need. We have to refer them out of the county, which a lot of them are not open to because that means leaving their community, their support, changing school systems for their children. So there's just a lot of barriers that go into relocating. So we believe it's so important to have that shelter here in Scott County, so that's why we are here today.
We also feel like this would be a benefit to the Georgetown Police Department and other responding first responders. We have, from the beginning of this journey, worked closely with Georgetown Police, Scott County Sheriffs, and know that those calls, a lot of those calls are going to those departments, and they are already stretched thin and already have so much on their plates that trying to walk women through this without having resources, without having someone to call is incredibly difficult because we know they want to serve their community the best they can. And so we believe that opening this shelter will help alleviate some demand on those responding departments, and we feel like we will continue to partner with them even closer as we open this and provide this resource for women who are calling.
And last year we did serve 45 individuals in our program, which was a 55% increase from the year prior. And of those 45, 17 would have utilized shelter had it been available. So instead, our advocate worked to get them to surrounding shelters, which again can be not great option for everybody. They either became homeless and worked to get them in housing, or they had to stay with their abuser. Again, it's so important that those resources are available to avoid any of those outcomes.
Another thing that we wanted to mention is that domestic violence is a far-reaching issue, and so it doesn't stop at a certain boundary within our community. It doesn't stop at an income limit. It really affects everyone in our community. So it's something that when you're putting dollars towards resources for those who are experiencing domestic violence, you're very much touching everyone in the community. Whereas I know, like homelessness and poverty, although it affects everyone, it does kind of stop at some of those limits, whereas domestic violence touches everyone.
And something we do pride ourselves in is that we always try and make our budget diverse. So you can see on the pie chart, that's our current budget. We try and make sure that our revenue is not coming from one source. That was very beneficial during the pandemic when some grants didn't come through or some fundraisers weren't able to happen. We had that other revenue sources, so we were okay. We feel very strongly that that's a great way to set your budget up.
And then lastly, we know that our project is supported by the comprehensive plan. Our organization was a part of that plan 5 years ago, and we are again part of that this go around, and we know that that document is Scott Countyans pouring into that and letting our community know what their priorities are. And in that document there is highlights of individuals wanting people to have access to shelter and food and safety. And so this program fulfills that need. And then also the way that we're going about opening the shelter by reusing one of our buildings that already exists in our community and renovating it instead of a new build. It's a cost-efficient way to be able to go about this, and that is in the comp plan, so we are also fulfilling that part of the plan as well. Yes, so as you all know, we love meeting up with you all and chatting and filling you in on what's going on with us. So anytime that you have any questions at all, feel free to email or call us. If there's any other documentation that you all would like, does anybody want a paper copy of our brochure? We sent the electronic one out, but if there's anything else that you all want, we didn't want to flood you all with documents because we could send you a lot, but if there's any sort of information that you all need that you think would be helpful in making decisions moving forward, know that you can reach out and ask us. We are happy to answer any questions anybody has right now. One thing I did forget to mention on one of the other slides is that we have worked very closely with planning and zoning. So the zoning has been changed for that property. We are now meeting with building inspection on making sure that all of our changes are getting approved through building inspection. And so we are going through all the right channels to make sure that this is to code and that we are abiding by guidelines within our community. So just wanted to make sure I said that. Does anybody have any questions?
Just a comment, Michelle, to start. Michelle, I'm sorry, Candace.
It's okay.
Look at Michelle.
I'm grateful. I would love to be called Michelle. She's amazing.
Right past you. You've always done an exceptionally good job of coming to the council and briefing them during the beginning of budget season. So I think that's really contributed to the council's awareness of what you've done, and the fact that you've gotten the funding to this level that it is, to where you can legitimately make a request of a larger part. So,
Thank you.
any questions? Candace, we'll talk to you.
Could you give me the exact address of the property that you've secured? You know where, I'm not quite sure where it is.
Yeah, we're happy to give that information, maybe not publicly,
Okay.
but yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think that
gotcha.
would probably be better.
Mhm.
But yes.
And one more question. So the property has been totally purchased,
Mhm.
and is there debt for the property, or were you able
Yeah,
to
so
secure
we
it all?
secured a grant for a down payment that was more than the required minimum amount. But we do still have a, debt mortgage on that, is that what we call it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Candace, you said you'd raised 10% already. What source did that come from?
So we have a grant, and then we've had individuals and,
Part of our fundraiser portions
oh,
went to that.
yes,
So.
yes, yes.
Here, Tim, ask a quick question.
Sure.
I want to thank you both. I had the opportunity to both over there at your office, and that was very enlightening to hear, I guess, more about your program. And I think one of the things that struck me was talking about how you try to help people that are in need. And sometimes when they come to you, it's a crisis. And you don't really have the opportunity to try to teach them or coach them. You have to respond to that crisis at that moment. But a big part of your program is coaching and teaching and trying to get people on the right track and getting their lives back in order. And to me, that really kind of hit kind of a spot that was important. So anyway, appreciate what you all are doing. Both of you are very young. I guess you went to Georgetown College and learned that. And we're lucky to have you all in the community. You're definitely filling a void that is in the community. We have a lot of good nonprofits, and that's wonderful. We need that. And I know some of us took the seminar with Kentucky Housing, and they talked about how the city can't do it on their own. It takes a team effort. It takes the city, it takes the county, it takes the nonprofits, it takes businesses, it takes churches, and all of those things coming together kind of move the engine forward. So I know we've got some others here tonight, and I say that same message to everybody, but I'll say it right now with you all here. So thank you.
Any other questions? At this point in time,
You know where we are. Bright purple door.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Candace.
Okay, the other not-for-profit that's with us is the Amen House, and its director is Michelle Carl. I really do know the difference.
Does it still work if I'm over here? Okay, I hate to stand with my back to them. Like you said, my name is Michelle Carlisle, and I'm entrusted with the leadership of the Amen House. And we are so thankful for the continued support from the council. I know that for years, well before years before I got here, you guys have been fighting hunger right alongside of us and supporting us with the general fund. Most of my focus tonight is not going to be about that continued support, but about that potential for ARPA funding. You hopefully have a packet in your section that outlines the property that we're looking at. It's currently operated by MLS Motorsports, and we have an intent to purchase that property signed, an agreement with them for $1.5 million. So we are kind of headed in that direction. We appreciate that when I turned in my very first rough draft of an application to you guys, it was very early on. I started emailing you in November of 2021. And at that point, I was asking for $500,000. That was when all of the guidelines were still in place around that funding, and nonprofits in your community were one of those bullet points of ways that you could spend it. I understand that those guidelines have been released, and I understand that in a lot of situations, that's been a beautiful thing. Communities really get to look at it and figure out what their community needs. And I understand I'm looking at it from absolutely my perspective. But I believe that Georgetown is stronger when the Amen House is stronger. If there's COVID relief funding, ARPA funding, however you want to put your words around it, that came out of this pandemic, I feel like we have proved ourselves worthy of funding. We stood steady in the middle of that storm. When other food banks around us were literally closing their doors, I don't know if you know much about food pantries, but most of their volunteers were in that critical demographic where we just weren't sure it was safe to even come. We lost a third of our volunteers and still held strong. We had to change the way we did things, as everybody had to change the way they did things. But we did hold strong. Other food banks closed, or the National Guard came in and were facilitating those things, but not in your town. In your town, we said hunger does not live here. We only didn't just do what we had always done, but we said yes to every single opportunity for food. I don't remember if you remember when we took over the parking lot behind City Hall and had the tractor trailers full of food come in there, but we put $2.3 million worth of food into this community in the heart of the pandemic. I just can't stress enough how my amazing volunteers held strong and made all of that happen. They did. Much like Candace and Emily are moving forward always, we are as well. We do think that the next step for us to be able to make it is going to take a bigger building. And I know you guys have heard me say that for years, years and years, even before the pandemic got here, that we need more space. We are currently saying no to food that is being thrown away because we can't capture it. We are launching, even in our small space this year, a partnership with Scott County School Systems. We did a survey across their family resource centers, and there were 3 schools in our community that said family resource was struggling to have enough food to send home with the kids on the weekend that need it. So we stepped in for 3 of those schools this year in January and started sending home those backpack meals for those kiddos. We're making it work. We dream of a time when we can bring all of that under one roof. We know we have purchasing power that the Friskies and even the churches that support those other programs don't have and aren't connected to. Things like that we can bring together and make this community stronger are part of our dream and part of our vision. When you look through our phases of this plan, you eventually, and I think we've got it marked around 2025, 2026, we are hopeful to launch into a soup kitchen model as well. There is food that comes straight from our government that Scott County has access to. It can funnel through us, and we can literally take that food and cook it and serve it. Those are things that we currently can't say yes to. That's kind of my big scale. Also, at this moment, can't say yes to turning a 25-pound bag of rice into a 1-pound bag of rice and distributing it. Because in my current location, I don't have a clean space. Not even a kitchen, but even just a clean space. Those are in phase 1. Those are things when we hit the ground running. We want to make sure that we can do those things and serve our community well. So there's been a lot of questions on dollars amounts attached to this. And guys, in full transparency, I feel like I'm not even for sure exactly what to ask for. What you're going to see in the proposal is a $78,000 request. That is basically, it's not basically, it is what we have projected our first year mortgage would be at, if we're borrowing $1.3 million, that was calculated at 3.5% interest, which is probably about to go up. But on those calculations, that's kind of what it will take us to kind of get through that first year. So there's been conversation about, you know, could the city come alongside and make sure we make it through the first year, and then maybe look at some like long-term support along those lines. But then there's also been conversations that I've had with individuals that are like, no, this ARPA is one-time funding. Let's kind of treat it as such. So I'm just here with my proposal to say we would love your help. I know one of the questions in the new grant application for you guys is what happens if we don't get this funding. And I would just say the Amen House is strong. We are going to move forward on this property. As the person looking over all of those numbers and in charge of all of that, I know for our long-term plans, we have to move. Like, we have to take that next step. But if we make that next step alone, I do think in the short term, things could get really, really tight. I know, like you guys much know, we have to make payroll, we have to purchase food, we have to make sure that mortgage is paid. I do feel like if we come together as a community, we could move forward without having to reduce any of our services along the way, even though the long term, if that's what we have to do, it's still the right decision. I'm sure you guys read the newspaper and have and are aware that the state legislator has backed us in the Kentucky state budget. The Amen House got $500,000 specifically towards funding a new building and a new location for us. We have asked the county for $500,000, and we're here to just request you guys to consider helping us along the way as well.
Thank you. Are there questions for Michelle?
So Michelle,
Yes.
you said that 1.5 million is what you were looking for.
1.5 is the asking price for the property.
Okay.
We have an estimate from Hargett Construction that is roughly around $400,000 of renovations. The current, I don't know if you guys have been in MLS or when it was the lumber company, there are definitely some accessibility points in that building that we will have to tackle so that our volunteers and our members can move freely throughout that building. We do want to put in the clean space in the back of that building. The first building is about 8,000 square feet, and that is kind of phase 1. What we would be looking at renovating and making work for both our clothing ministry and our food pantry.
Okay. And so you got this, I know, I read about the
Yes.
$500,000.
Yeah.
So what does that leave you? I mean, have you had other sources that have already contributed?
So at this point, we are here. We are in front of you guys. I do think we're at a little different tipping point than Elizabeth Village. We have the letter of intent to purchase the property. Wouldn't surprise anybody. MLS is not going to shut down their business just so we can move in. So they do have to acquire their property. They have to build their new building. We're probably looking at, like, if they were breaking ground today, probably 18 months out from us walking in to the building itself. So I feel like we're a little on the front end of that, but I just couldn't miss this opportunity. I couldn't wait till we had that contract completely signed to come before you guys. But we are, I do know that the owners have signed a letter of intent to purchase and have an agreement with the new land that they're purchasing. I don't know anything about those deals, but they have shared that with me, so I do know things are moving on their side. It'll just be a matter of all of those pieces falling into place. But I do think, yes, like a capital campaign is coming and all of those things. We just couldn't wait to get all of our details together on fear of missing out of this funding opportunity. Yeah, sure.
Do you have so if you get the money, if you actually were to get you've got the $500,000 coming, and if we were to do a $500,000 in the county, you've got your property paid for.
Yes, ma'am.
So if the property was paid for, and since you're going into a bigger, you've got fabulous dreams, and I don't doubt at all that you'll get there, but have you set up a business plan on how much it's gonna cost after the building, especially if the building is paid for, how much each year is gonna cost to maintain what you're shooting for each of those years?
So when it comes to like expenses and things like electricity and utility bills and things like that, that's in your packet.
Okay.
So there is going to be a jump on that. I have it with me, but I'm not going to look all it up. I think it was around, there was a jump, but it was like an $11,000 jump or something like that. Something I feel like we can absorb in our routine budget. And it really is, at this point, the things that we have budgeted for are getting into phase 1. We do know that our dream of a soup kitchen will totally be dependent on everything that goes on in this building, ensuring that we have the water supply and sewer supply underneath that that can handle a new kitchen in that area. So we're working with Georgetown Water and Sewer on that. And then moving forward, we do have plans, and they are very rough estimates on sustainability for that. So the front part of that building will always serve our members and will always take care of their clothing needs. But there is a plan to incorporate a thrift store along with that. We've seen a great model for that in Winchester, that we go there, and their model alongside their food pantry does turn a profit and does make those things accessible. And when we get to planning those next phases, hopefully that revenue will be there to launch some of that.
Well, you've got 18 months from the time that to get to there, you'll have a lot of things under control as to how it's going to work and
Right.
happen.
How many volunteers do you have?
We have currently right now about 100 and active. Sorry, my allergies are about to get the best of me. So we've got about 250 that were on the roster throughout the year, but it's truly 150 dedicated volunteers that make all of this work.
Your back buildings on that piece of property, what are you thinking about for those at this point in time? I'm jumping the gun on you.
Sure, that's okay. So initially, the front building is completely air conditioned, has all of its good stuff in there. The second building has heat, but not air and no water. But we do plan to put our 6x6 walk-in coolers. We have a 6x6 freezer and a 6x6 walk-in that will go in that second building. And then we can do all of our clothing storage there because it does not require any temperature controls to put clothing out there. So those donations will be occupied there. There have been lots of conversations about the other building. Some of them may potentially be torn down. I understand that there's great scrap metal, as David smiles at me, back there that could be sold. I'm not exactly for sure. We've talked about different versions of what would be more economical to try to convert that second building into full food at some point in phase 2, or if it would be more economical to start a new building. Those things would all come down to price points.
Thank you.
Sure.
It's a great location, Michelle.
It is a good location.
Michelle, I'm just really impressed with both of these philanthropies here in town. And when I visited, I met the social worker, and I had not realized that you also...
Sorry, she's here tonight. That's why I looked over there.
Yeah, I can't see her there.
Yeah.
There are lots of tentacles to this ministry, to the community, and
We're very proud to have Serena. She is our social worker. We brought her on in August last year, and and what she's been able to do with our homeless outreach programs, with our homebound food assistance and the screening that are required so that we can take those people food every month. She loves on this community in a pretty special way. She has loved the Amen House for years and years before I got here. And so she left us for a little while and went and got her social work degree, and now is back literally on the ground fighting hunger. And so we fight hunger, but we fight it on a lot of fronts. This lady has got more photo IDs taken care of for some of our men and women transitioning from either sober living or out of jail and trying to get their feet on the ground. It's amazing the list of things that you can't do if you don't have a photo ID. And she has become the champion for that. And in turn, guys, it fights hunger. I know it sounds like a little piece of plastic, but you can't get a job. Like, you can't get a bank account. You can't get, anyway, whole layers of assistance that you cannot receive until you get that one ID. And it's really pretty simple if you were born here in Kentucky and you've lived here in Kentucky. If you haven't, it's quite the process. But she's getting really good at trying to get information from California and places like that so that these people can get that second chance. It's good stuff. There's lots of good stuff that happens within our walls.
Everybody deserves a second chance.
Michelle, what will happen to your property on North Hamilton Street?
So, that seems like that's the hot topic question. No, I get it. I do not completely speak for the board, and while there has not been a full decision made, I think it is very, very likely that once we have a property of our own, that will be sold to pay for that to pay towards that property. But as Jeff Green, our realtor on the board, likes to remind me, nothing is done until it's done. So we won't be letting go of that until we know that this is the direction that we're moving in. But most definitely, I think we learned a lot when we bought that property. A lot of those things came from the water company. But there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to go in that ground before we would be able to build up. Quotes came back on us from start to finish being about a $5 million project out there to get to the same space, that 25,000 square feet roughly, that is at MLS right now for the bargain price.
Much cheaper to buy already built than to build.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for Michelle?
Thank you. Awesome.
Thank
Thank you guys so much.
Appreciate what you got, what you do and everyone
Thank
else.
you so much for your time.
Thank
And
you.
I watched the fiscal court presentations, and you all were very brief tonight. Thank you. Okay, let's see. I think that was all that was signed up for public comment.
Excuse me, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
You say you welcome public comments. I'm sorry I didn't get here in time to sign up. I just found out this meeting, I thought it was gonna be at the library. I had to left the library at 5 o'clock. I couldn't get here in time to sign up. Would you allow my public comment?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm calling, I'm here to address the so-called agreement, demolition forbearance agreement that I signed, thank you, that I signed last week. And in reference to, excuse me, I'll call you, this is I'm calling your attention not to my obligation as a seller, but to the obligation of Gaylord Highlander, the buyer. It says here that that he will, that is Gaylord Highlander, will as soon as lawfully able, coordinate with code enforcement officials to remedy all existing conditions which present a danger to the public. This is in regard to the house and property he's buying from me. This shall include, without limitation, the removal of a dead or dying tree in the front portion of the lot. And I have here a picture of that tree, and if I may, could I walk this around to show each of you the picture of this tree, please? Thank you. This is well, don't you would be interested in this. This is the tree that's the subject of that item in the agreement. again, this item number F, that is in the so-called demolition forbearance agreement, and he will coordinate with code enforcement to remove the tree. That, according to this statement here in this agreement, the dead or dying tree. And the reason I'm here, Mayor Fraser, is to plead for the life of the tree. I'll call your attention, if I may, to the comprehensive plan. This is the Scott County Comprehensive Plan, revised in 2017. And it says here, a goal of Scott County Comprehensive Plan is to protect and enhance the natural landscapes that give Scott County its unique identity and image. We want to highlight the special environmental qualities of Scott County. And at the bottom of the page, it says, this is page 120 of the 2017 Comprehensive Plan. Encourage the greening of Scott County by preserving trees, increasing tree canopy coverage. And that's the language in the comprehensive plan of the 2017 revision. And there is very similar language to that in every comprehensive plan, updated every 4 years, all the way back to 1991. Every comprehensive plan urges preservation of trees and expansion of tree canopy in Georgetown. And if you, I don't know, I'm 75 years old, and people could say, well, I'm not dead, but I'm dying, which is true. And you're maybe 70 years old, Mayor Prather, and people can say the same about you compared to when you were a toddler riding around on your tricycle with no clothes on. And I remember in the neighborhood, compared to those days, you're dying. But I'm sure you would appreciate someone saying, let's get rid of Tom Prather and let's get rid of Steve Price because they're dying. And that's basically what they're saying about this tree. And this demolition forbearance agreement was drafted in about March, signed on March 25th, executed on March 25th. And in March, no person can determine whether a tree is dead or alive without doing a bore test or scraping the bark. And no such test was done on this tree, and nobody can say about this tree that it's dying on the basis of its appearance in March. And I can assure you that right now, in fact, probably, it's beginning to foliate. And that tree, it foliates every summer. I've been there since 2003. The tree's not dying. It foliates, and maybe more, by that means it gets leaves. Leaves come on the tree, and they're all there all summer till fall, and when they fall, the autumn leaves drop. Most important about the tree is it sheds huge volume of seeds, and those seeds go all over Georgetown and cause by the way, it's a locust tree, and those seeds disseminate everywhere in Georgetown and cause locust trees to come up. And to cut down this tree and to force Highlander to cut down that tree would defy the comprehensive plan and would deprive our neighborhood over there on Rucker Avenue of an important environmental landmark. And I'm asking you to reconsider Attorney Golden, that specific item of the demolition forbearance agreement and not require Highlander to remove that tree. And I want to just simply say real quickly that I studied horticulture at the University of Kentucky, and I have a letter here from my professor, if I can find it. He said,
hey Steve, I can cut right to, I can help this. I will talk with Mr. Highlander about the status of that tree.
Okay, thank you. And I'll say this.
I don't know what the conclusion will be, but since he is the new owner of that tree, I will talk with him about that tree.
Okay, well, let me say, he owns 159 Rucker Avenue, and he had there's a red maple tree in the front yard of that house, and a limb fell on a car several months ago, and Highlander was either held accountable or not held accountable. And for Highlander, I think it's commendable that you refer to Highlander, and I think Highlander should be allowed to make the decision. If a limb falls on somebody, Highlander will be liable. But for the town to order him to remove the tree is to deprive him of his personal rights as a proprietor.
Although he voluntarily signed the contract saying this.
Sure, under duress, well, all of us, because we wanted to save that tree, save the house. That's why we
Well,
signed it.
I'll talk to him.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Just a couple of mayor's comments, if I could, please. Really good day today. For the mayor of Georgetown, today's a good day. Yeah, started off early this morning with the fire department. Fire department has started another officer development class. Chief Colson and his staff learned that we're really having to grow our own officers. We want to promote from within. We've had so many retirements in recent years, so much experience is left, that we're really having to work at growing our own leadership. So they kicked off a class this morning, pretty big class, Chief.
12 people.
12 people, firefighters trying, just the extra effort trying to get that next promotion. And then we swore in a new police officer right after I left the fire department, so that's always a good day. Those at the chamber luncheon today heard the beginning of a presentation from Ted Abernathy about our economic development strategy for the future. We've been working with Mr. Abernathy. He's also working with the region that includes Lexington, Fayette County, to work on their regional plan. We thought it made a lot of sense to work directly with him on the development of our plan. And our plan will probably be finished a couple of months before the broader regional plan will be. But a lot of rich data, Jack Popper Foundation was laid for the more specific recommendations that will be coming. So very positive in that regard. Also today, we were able to hit the send button on several, I think they're called community project funding opportunities. We got a notification from Congressman Barr's office just a week or so ago that Congress had this new way of seeking a request in the era after benchmarks and the process that would be used to seek access to those funds. And we took a look at them. They were very specific and back cabinet, and figured that we had a couple of projects that would really fit well. So those applications were due had to be sent by close of business today. And the city sent one on behalf of our City Hall project, requesting the amount of $4 million. And Chase submitted one on behalf of GMWSS to help us defray cost on wastewater plant number 1.
It's wonderful.
So we'll see. We were timely with our application. We'll just have to see how they get. So all in all, that was a pretty productive day for us. Let's see, this coming week, I think we've got a meeting of the cemetery committee. So we'll be working on that. Also, Will, the community had a really important guest this last week.
Yes,
I thought.
I did too, yeah.
We had a gentleman visit our community who is the author of a book called The Sun Does Rise.
Yeah, the sun still shines.
Sun Still Shines.
Yeah.
This gentleman spent 27 years on death row, falsely accused. And a powerful evening. I'm not sure I've seen the chapel that full of community members.
It was inspiring and very moving.
And it was quiet. Mike, I think you'll have heard a pin drop in that entire presentation from that gentleman. So he knew that he was welcome to Georgetown Striking.
Absolutely.
I think so. But it was, we're very, very proud that he was here. And with that, I think we'll move right back into the agenda. We have a special guest tonight, item 7 on our agenda, Parks and Recreation.
Special.
Ms. Gilmright, we've been talking for some time about a large capital improvement, a repair. It's time. Kim's got the details. Fiscal court's already looked at this and taken positive action.
Correct.
So, Kim, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, so as you know, the pavilion is around 22 years old, and we've been talking for several years, probably 5, 7, somewhere around those lines, that it's going to be time to replace our air handling unit. I don't want to call it HVAC because it's not. It's special because we have an auditorium. The life expectancy of those air handling units is 12 to 15 years, and we have fantastic maintenance staff that has extended it to an additional 7 years. But right now, it's only running at about 40% capacity. And if you've been in the auditorium lately, the air quality is really, really bad, especially during spring break when the pools are full. So I started this process about 2 years ago to kind of figure out where we need to be, because it's more than just the air handling unit. What we have now is a Dectron unit, and it was the hot thing when the building was built, but technology has improved in 22 years, and our pools are heated by pumping the water to the roof to the Dectron unit and bringing it back down. Since then, more technology has come about. We're looking at replacing the Dectron units with things that are called pool packs. We also are going to bring our pool heaters down into the basement of the facility. We need to have a boiler replaced. The ducting units that are above, or the ducting that's above the auditorium, are actually facing each other instead of actually blowing the air down to purge those chloramines off the surface of the pool. So the chloramines sit about 6 feet off the surface of the pool, and if you're never getting the air down there, you're not ever getting the chloramines out. So some of the changes that we're looking at doing in addition to the ducting work is to reface the diffusers to make sure that we're getting the air circulation down to the bottom of the pools. We're going to bring returns down the outside exterior walls to about 3 to 5 feet above the spectators' heads to be able to suck the air from the pools. Also get some chloramine sensors that were not existent 22 years ago so that the system can be automatic. That's just part of the project. While we were going through this process, there has been some structural damage to the observation decks and the trusses that are above the observation decks. And so we've gone through a structural engineer to estimate what those costs are. Those estimated costs are around $65,000. However, I currently have an RFQ out that doesn't close until April 18th at 12 o'clock. So those are just estimated costs. To date, the fiscal court has committed to pay half of the project. We think it's going to be right around 1.7 million. What we have quoted is just the air handling units, all these HVAC issues, and it's right at, and I believe I provided that to Devin earlier, is $1,453,807.
The fiscal court committed on Friday that they're gonna pay a quarter of it in this fiscal year with their reserve transfer, and then they're gonna pay the other quarter going into next budget year. So in our discussions with the mayor and with Andrew, we would like to request that city council consider it in my coming up budget for the next fiscal year. So I'm not expecting payment anytime soon until the next fiscal year. But I want to make sure that you express your support so that I can get my board to approve it and move it forward. Part of the resolution for the structural issue is we are intending on removing the observation decks completely. They're going to come completely out. When we were looking at the price estimates to fix it and keep them in place, it was going to be $425,000. So 65 versus 425,000 for a space that's only used kind of during swim meets and to eat on. We decided, the board, our building and finance committee decided to go with completely removing the observation decks. And there was also an option of putting in supports underneath the observation decks. But because of the way that the piping and our surge tanks are under the large observation deck, we did not want to run that risk. We've dealt with stuff for many years with piping issues, and we don't want to do anything that could possibly destroy our pool shell or any of the piping that's underneath there.
Those mezzanines, if you've looked at them, you mostly don't notice them because they're just so easy to overlook, but they hang from the ceiling. There's nothing underneath of them. They're just those big mezzanines that hang down from the ceiling. That stuff in the ceiling is shot. So.
Right. Anywhere that there was a high load pressure point, we have major corrosion. And we've had the mezzanines closed on top and below for about 6 to 8 weeks, just for safety reasons. So we are intending to move forward before the next fiscal year to start the process. With the county's support with paying their quarter, that will help us. The sooner the better, so.
Kim, how long is the process gonna take?
The pool packs are gonna take 35 weeks to get in. So we are going to start with the removal of the observation decks and the ducting work. We will have the facility closed at this point, we know, for at least 3 weeks, but I don't know the timetable on when that will be. Because again, I want to try to do the ducting and the observation decks at the same time to limit our closure time. So until that RFQ closes, we don't have a contractor.
And for those who haven't been, go up there and stand on that deck.
Don't, if they're closed.
Just
look.
Not on the, I'm talking about on the pool deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And see how bad the chlorine is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's worse at certain times of the year. The more differential in temperature is between the inside and the outside. Dead of summer, dead of winter, or during spring break. It's really, really bad. The more crowded we are, the air handling system just cannot keep up with the burn off of the chloramines.
Well, you know, Michelle, the thing about it is,
Kim.
Kim, I'm sorry.
Michelle's over
Everybody.
I'm sorry. But what I was gonna say is that, first of all, I appreciate everything that you do, and, you know, owning buildings, it's our responsibility to make sure that they're taken care of and brought up to speed, and I know technology changes all the time. The only question I have is the way that the county is structuring that, and the way that our resolution is written, Devin. Is that something that we can do as well, looking at that, you know, splitting it up the way that you have this written?
So that will be how it happens in effect. I might let Stacy speak to this, but we purposely wrote it this way so that, I'll just let you speak to it.
Yeah, the way, the county is on cash basis accounting, so when they write the check, that's when the expense hits their ledger. We're on modified accrual, which means when the expense is incurred. So even though Kim may not send us an invoice until July or August, if she has done work and received invoices through June 30th, they will hit this year's budget for us.
Okay.
So that's how our accounting.
The county does have that real neat tool called reserve for transfer.
Yeah.
And with a simple, if they have enough funding to put in reserve for transfer, and they do, then they can move that just on voice vote. So it becomes real easy for them to do that, something that would require us to amend the budget.
And we will have a final budget amendment in June, like we always do, to catch anything that's come up between
We
now and
just
then.
promised to pay for it. We're approving it tonight, promising to pay for it.
That way I can get my
with our
board to
next
approve it.
budget.
I'll make the motion.
I second.
Mayor, I've got a question before we vote on this.
Yeah, and I have a question.
And we'll ask a question too.
Kim, I'd like to ask a follow-up to
Absolutely.
Mr. Hampton's question.
Yes.
The total, if this moves forward,
Yes,
with all the work that you've just described to us, which sounds like quite a bit of work,
it is quite a bit of work, yes.
did I hear correctly that you're only anticipating the pavilion being shut down for 3 weeks? Or
Just
will
on
it-
the first end of it,
Okay.
hopefully. And now, we will still have to do our shutdown in August that we typically do, because what we do during our shutdown in August is we drain the pool and we take care of the pool bottom and the tiles and all that and acid wash. We cannot do that during this project because we need that pressure on our pool shell when heavy equipment is coming onto the pool deck. So it will be 3 weeks, hopefully. That's what they're estimating. Both the structural engineer that did the estimate for us, who could potentially do the project, and our HVAC people, because the major work they're going to be doing in the auditorium is the ducting work. And they have a special crane to be able to get above the pool. And with the structural engineer and that's hopefully going to do the work, if the bid comes out right, and the HVAC guy, they're going to share the crane, because it's a funky special order from somewhere else crane to bring in. But they're saying 3 weeks, so.
Well, yeah, I'm assuming this is gonna be done in phases.
Yes. So the ducting work and the observation decks are gonna come out during those 3 weeks. But any of the other stuff, even putting the units on the roof, we're not gonna have to be shut down for. They're gonna prep everything for the pool packs, because there's a couple other units that are not hard to get. They're gonna prep everything for the pool packs and still run the Dectron until the pool packs come in 35 weeks from now. And that's a crane, like a car, they're the size of a car. There's 2 of them. So.
I mean, Mayor, you and I talked about this earlier today. I mean, it's a painful expenditure. I don't think we have an option.
It's one that is, it's come due. And it's really time to protect our building and our citizens.
For sure.
Kim, I am fully in support of this. It's been a long time coming. Even when my son was on the swim team many years ago, swimmers would be taking the ER for chlorine exposure.
My daughter is one of them. My daughter went through that, yes.
Yeah, and so I'm not sure things were done well to start with, and you're talking about new technology, and that might have been one of the reasons, but we do, I'm most concerned, besides structurally, about the chlorine mitigation, and this will take care fully of that problem.
Yes, so if you look at the diffusers now in the auditorium, they're all facing like this.
Okay.
And you know how tall that auditorium is.
Yes.
So if the air is blowing out this way, how is it getting down to the pool surface? So in addition to redirecting the diffusers, I'm getting 2 big ass fans too. Like big ass fans, not the real ones. The company ones, yeah, the company ones. And with the returns, it will pull. One of the things that we've done, because you're right, it never really worked the way it was supposed to, is we got those big fans that are put on the pool deck to purge the chloramines off the surface of the pool. We're also going to have the returns come down really low so that when that air comes down, it can be sucked back out. Because the returns are also up here where the diffusers are that are facing this way.
Okay,
so there's some design issues.
Yeah.
There was originally, but it's time to fix it now.
Yep.
And our guys did a great job keeping this going as long as it has. There's an auditorium that put in, I think it was Ceresco. There's only 3 type of auditorium HVAC units, and Ceresco is one of them. It's only been open 5 years, and they're already having to replace it. Wow. Yeah. So and we got ours 22. Not working great right now, but 22. We're not dead in the water, they're dead in the water.
Any other questions for Kim?
No, sir.
Tom, was that a motion or?
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And a second from Willow.
And a second from Will, thank you. If there are, it's a big expenditure, but we are in a position to address it. That's the good news. So with that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, item 8.
Mayor, I know she's gonna leave. You got anything else? You send me stuff. You said, no, I'm gonna be there tonight, so.
No, I was just gonna talk about, when Todd did his comments at the end, I just want to make sure that the public is aware that we have scholarship opportunities for the community. I don't know if that's something that we often highlight, but we have had a process in place for years, and with youth sports all doing their signups and their registrations, summer camp coming up, any of our programs. I just want to make sure that that gets out there to the community. You come by Parks and Rec, they'll tell you what information you need to bring, income for the household and number of individuals that live in the household, and we'll take a look at it and see if they certify. You can get a large percentage off of any of the programs or any of our daily passes with stuff opening up pretty soon. Yes. You can also use the scholarship opportunities for that too. So.
Good information, thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
All right. Item 8, under city attorney is first reading on Enterprise Way annexation ordinance within our business park here. Jacker, are you here representing?
I'm just here to answer any questions after the city attorney.
Good.
Want me to say something? I got maps.
We're not disappointed.
Yeah, how about it?
Then,
I'm gonna stand here in case you need me.
sounds good, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance annexing into the city of Georgetown certain real property containing approximately 21.21 plus or minus acres located near Enterprise Way in Scott County, Kentucky. Summary 1. Annexes into Georgetown city limits by written consent of the property owner in accordance with KRS 81A.412, approximately 21.21 plus or minus acres of property located near Enterprise Way in Scott County, Kentucky. 2. Provides for repeal of inconsistent laws, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time, April 11, 2022.
Thank you. We are first reading, and we would expect second reading then on April the 25th. Okay. Item B is first reading of the zone change ordinance for the same property.
An ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property containing a total of approximately 86.44 plus or minus acres located near Enterprise Way in the city of Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky from A1 and R-1C to BP-1. Summary 1. Rezones approximately 86.44 plus or minus acres located near Enterprise Way in the city of Georgetown, Scott County, Kentucky from A1 and R-1C to BP-1. 2. Provides for repeal of inconsistent laws, severability of provisions, and effective date upon passage of publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the Georgetown City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Public introduced and read for the first time, April 11, 2022.
Thank you. And again, we'll expect second reading then, or second meeting in April.
If I may, Mayor, we were talking about Lot 48, in particular because the project relates to annexation and the BP1's rezoning kind of was triggered all by a couple purchases of property that we made, the Marshall property and then some of the other property on the Basler property, which is actually what we call phase 2, that's the 72 acres. But this all kind of has risen as a result of the location that we announced to you a number of months ago of Universal Piping Incorporated. I brought that project to you as a land sale. It's almost 13 acres. The project actually was approved for a KBI incentive package as well as what's called KIA. This is a company that used to be located here in our community. They actually relocated to Lexington, and now we actually had a contract with them about 4 or 5 years ago. So we have a new contract for 12.88 plus or minus acreage. This is a prefabricated piping company. They're a Flint, Michigan corporation, and we will bring in 75 new jobs to our community. They have an existing about 45 jobs in Lexington. They'll then be coming here. The incentive itself is for 25 new jobs. The average wage plus benefits is $51 an hour. So that's the project, and I think I talked to you about, probably was the Nix code at the time when I usually make those presentations, but the did get approved for the incentive, and this is kind of what stirred the fall. I went too long, but I had maps.
Thank you, Jack. I love your maps.
And you can tell from your packet the way these parcels fit
Yes.
together. These are just pieces of a very complicated puzzle that we've been assembling for a number of years.
That is correct, yes, sir.
I'm finally able to
Thank you.
take this action.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Jack.
Yes, sir.
Under 9 on your agenda, under city engineers, a municipal order approving Urban Street Stormwater Project. Anything you need to enlighten us there?
That's a line, this is to replace a section of line that we found had been deteriorated to the point where it was probably going to fail at some point in the near future. So we're trying to decide whether to slip line it with trenchless technology or just dig it up and replace it the old-fashioned way. And so we've got an engineering firm who submitted a competitive proposal to do that work for us. And that's what the project's all about.
Thank you. If there are no questions for Eddie, is there a motion for approval?
Motion, Mayor. Second.
And seconded. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Let's see, we've got a resolution approving an amendment to our Cmac grant agreement. The Cmac grant, for some council members that haven't been here for a long time, Cmac is another grant that we received early during my administration, and we have struggled to get it implemented. Cmac is an acronym for congestion mitigation and air quality. We applied to help the traffic situation out on Cardinal Drive. And we did make it one way. We instituted a number of changes. We had the grant designed, then the school system decided they wanted to use the properties different. And I think we went back to the drawing board.
We're getting ready to go out to bid on it.
With this amendment, we're actually getting ready to vote. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you.
Second.
And second, thanks, Anna. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we need some drum roll. For item C on the agenda.
Hello.
I want to introduce you, Councilmember Connie Tackett, who's going to introduce item C.
Listen, this is a long time coming, and I'm very grateful for the people that's been on board with us to get this done. I know right before COVID, we had met, we had a subcommittee of our traffic committee, and we had a gentleman come from northern Kentucky who was very helpful. We had several meetings, and then the next thing you know, COVID hit. Everything kind of got shut down. So we've continued to hold our traffic meetings, and we kind of put things off before we make any dire decisions because we really wanted to get our traffic ordinance updated. So we condensed it. We did another little subcommittee with Devin and Officer Lodell and Eddie and myself. And basically, we just kept it out there before us and on the in the calendar to get together, and with Devin and Officer Lodell's help, we've digested it down to 30 pages. And
short.
and it's pretty good. And the one thing that we did really center on was what was specific to our city, our community. And we try not to make it real difficult because we didn't want to do that. It's probably not perfect, but I'm pretty sure that it could be remedied if it needs to be. There's some other things that need to be said about it that I'm gonna turn over to Devin, because we did send it out to our traffic committee earlier before the council got it, the first of the week. And there were a couple of issues that came through and we addressed both of them. And I'm gonna let Devin kind of go along with that and fill in the rest of it.
Yeah, so like Connie said, this is, she referenced the code enforcement ordinance, which I thought was a good comparison. This is a pretty, it's a complete rewrite, so it'll be a good opportunity over the next year or two to evaluate whether any amendments need to be made or whether we missed anything. So totally open to comments on that moving forward, or if there's anything traffic committee or council identifies, we can always consider an amendment. Traffic committee did have a couple weeks to review this, and two individuals commented. One was regarding the accessibility provisions and some of the language there, and another issue that he noted was there was an outdated reference to the building code. So we remedied those two things. Full transparency, one comment that we did not, that the subcommittee didn't implement, was a request that Main Street become a no truck traffic at all. What do you call it? A thoroughfare, I guess.
No through.
So somebody did request that no trucks, and by trucks I mean like semi trucks, not pickup trucks, be allowed to travel through downtown.
You couldn't do that for state law, could you? Did state law override that?
We could restrict it. Like we do have truck routes in our ordinance, and lots of cities do that. So we could designate specific truck routes and not include downtown, but we just didn't think it was feasible based on our downtown businesses and based on the width of those streets. We thought truck traffic's going to get towards downtown, and they're going to have to turn on Military or side streets like that. So we thought it was infeasible, but just wanted to mention that for transparency because that was a comment.
And the other reason why too is because, you know, we just got our bypass totally finished, and so we need to give everybody an opportunity to know that you can get to where you need to be in Georgetown, except for downtown. And in downtown, you have people delivering, so you can't really keep that from happening. So we just felt like we probably wouldn't wait to do anything with that.
Keep tabs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only comment I had. I will say too, obviously Eddie was incredibly helpful because this is his niche, but Lieutenant Loda was really helpful with the public safety aspect of it. So I feel like we got a lot of different perspectives weighing in on this, and I think it's a good product.
Is there anything on the, where it talk, I think it's on page 7, it talks about covering like loads of hay. Is there anything that the agriculture, since Kentucky's such an agricultural state, is there anything that the agriculture supersedes what we can do locally as far as making people cover their hay wagons and things? Because you don't see that much. Actually, the rock trucks, not our local ones necessarily, but a lot of the rock trucks don't get covered and the rocks flow out of it. But where it says the manner to prevent contact from dropping, blowing, shifting, covering loads of hay, you don't see much hay completely covered.
Yeah, that's a pretty standard provision that localities use, so it's obviously stricter than the state law. So I know this was one's already been on the books, but it's kind of just one of those funny ones that we're not going to be pulling people over for that necessarily, but it is nice to have on the books if you have a bad actor who's, you know, habitually just essentially littering the streets because they're negligent in their procedures or something like that. But yeah, to answer the question of whether state law would override, it's more stringent than state law, so it's allowable.
And another thing, since on the same page, what about the sanitation trucks? Where we're having so many complaints about the new sanitation trucks leaving litter and stuff falling out of the trucks and all that kind of stuff. So then is this to be able to find them?
Well, that one's kind of a can of worms because the entire problem we're seeing with that is that people aren't following the requirements that Republic has put out. I mean, I know there have been a lot of issues with the transition, and we're trying to address those, but that complaint is one that we pretty wholeheartedly are willing to tell citizens the issue is that you're not bagging the garbage. And it's easy to do, you know, I do it, I walk in the garage, I throw a wrapper from the car in there, and then when it gets dumped. So that one, I don't know that we could. I could look in our contract though and see if there's anything in our contract specific. That's how I would address an issue with them, would be through our franchise agreement. But, yeah, I mean, a person is defined as person, corporation, anyone, so it could be enforced against businesses and individuals alike.
Okay, all right. And then one more, if you don't mind, since I'm on that page, on page 7, it talks about to operate, person operate any sound truck or public access. Does that include like an ice cream truck?
Which provision are you on?
38-23.
Okay.
I think it says something about operate, any person operate a sound truck or a public address system. Isn't that what an ice cream truck does? Is that still allowable, or is that different definition?
I've not considered that. I never thought of an ice cream truck.
Hey, I like my ice cream truck. It comes to our neighborhood, so that's how I know they're coming.
I don't think
I
it's
don't
so
know.
much the ice cream truck as it would be somebody coming down through there with a megaphone.
Well, they do though.
Yeah,
Kind
but
of
it's.
thing- kind of thing. I
but
mean,
it's
but
occasional.
it's business related, so I just wondered if that would, because one of the neighbors did complain. I'm like, gosh, go get some ice cream, you'll be all right. But nevertheless, does it fit?
I've not considered that, honestly, so I couldn't
No.
say. I mean, I wouldn't recommend enforcing it against that person, but if you wanted it explicitly written, I think we would probably have to state that. I think the intent of that provision is, like you said, somebody driving down the street with a megaphone, you know, come to XYZ location and buy XYZ. I treat that more as like a food truck. So I wouldn't recommend enforcing it that way, but if you feel that it needs to be more specifically noted.
I think I might, just because when they put the police in a situation, like if one neighbor complains and they pull this out, then, and the other neighbor's like, leave my ice cream truck alone, then there might be a problem there. So if we make it, define it better, then there's maybe not the problem, get ahead of the problem before it happens.
The only thing that I would suggest about that, you know, tagging on what Karen's saying, is that it was there before. I don't think we changed it. And this has been there since 1968, and we haven't stopped the ice cream truck. So you know, you can be more restrictive, but I think, I'm not sure that it's gonna be a problem. But that's my take on it.
Well, I kind of think if you're cleaning it up, and you're going through the process of cleaning it up,
Absolutely.
then this is the time to put the language in there, so maybe it's a little sharper and clearer. This is just something that we can think about.
Okay.
And then the other question on page 17, 38-119, on that one, so I get the point of that one definitely. We do have problems every now and then on those southern states is totally off the beaten path, really. But with that, you have a little bit of problem around the southern states area and dropping it off onto, as they come out onto the road. But the other area that really is with our Festival of the Horse. So does Festival of the Horse negate that? Since it's a city-approved event, then we're not going to worry about that?
Yeah, I mean, we always have the authority to enforce or not enforce our provisions, so as long as we don't do it in a discriminatory manner. So I would say that would be a situation where the public is on notice that there are gonna be horses and things like that. So I don't think that would be an issue.
Okay, all right.
That was one thing we did talk about.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
I do have another comment, not a question. So now that this is done and about to be voted on, seems for the most part straightforward. What about where we've had issues that I brought up for the last 4 years or 5 years about the street parking?
That is on our agenda, that's been tabled, and as soon as we get our ordinance done, we're gonna get busy on this, making those decisions.
Okay, and those decisions will be, like, are we going to enforce the street parking then after this is passed?
That's the whole reason of having the ordinance, is so that the police department will have to be able to enforce those, yes.
Just don't like my ice cream truck.
One more thing that I did want to note, thanks for bringing that up, Connie, is that the parking issue is based on street width, so that's been included in the subdivision regs this whole time, so that's always been on the books, but like Connie said, it's kind of an issue of how much parking do we want to eliminate, because if you follow the law to the T in the subdivision regs, you'd eliminate a lot of parking based on our older streets. So
Yeah.
this gives, the authority and the, bandwidth for traffic committee to consider safety issues and kind of make a case-by-case basis decision.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Did we actually read the first?
We didn't, were you changing something?
It won't impact the summary, but I have to think about it a little more. I don't know if I would really call this a substantive change. I think it's more of a clarification, so I think we can still move on with first reading.
Thank you.
An ordinance repealing and replacing Chapter 38 of the Georgetown Code of Ordinances regarding traffic and vehicles. Summary. 1. Repeals or replaces Chapter 38 of the Georgetown Code of Ordinances. 2. Provides definitions and general traffic and motor vehicle regulations applicable within the city of Georgetown. Drivers and pedestrians obey such devices and do not interfere therewith. 4. Creates authority to place restricted turn signs, authority to mark traffic lanes, requirements for slow-moving vehicles, and obligations for special stops and yields. 5. Requires that pedestrians abide by certain guidelines related to crossing roadways, conducting activities on sidewalks, and assembling in groups. 6. Dictates the requirement for vehicles stopping, standing, and parking, including the following: nighttime display of lights and the manner of opening doors of any parked vehicle. Authority to prohibit or regulate parking and signage for accessible parking spaces and generally authorized and/or prohibited parking places or purposes. Regulations for the use of municipal parking lots and establishment and requirements for the residential parking permit program on the designated streets. 7. Provides that traffic laws shall apply to bicyclists, defines locations and manner of bicycle use, and requires bicycles to be equipped with certain safety equipment when used at nighttime. 8. Defines golf cart. Provides requirement for golf carts to be operated on designated city streets, requires that golf carts follow all state and local traffic regulations when operated on the designated city streets, and provides certain exemptions. 9. Adopts a snow plan. Classifies streets for purposes and said snow plan, restricts parking during snow events, and provides requirements for snow removal conducted by members of the public and the city's public works department. 10. Lists the procedures and fines for parking citation enforcement and allows for the impoundment of vehicles parked on streets or public ways in violation of certain local ordinances and/or state laws. 11. Establishes throughout the various articles of the chapter penalties for the violation of the provisions thereof. 12. Provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced in public record for the first time, April 11, 2022.
Thank you. It's made me tired just listening to this.
I know, right?
Imagine being on the committee.
Thank you.
Well done, Connie.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much. Item 10 on our agenda under finance is a municipal order approving revised purchasing and procurement thresholds. This is something Stacy and I have been discussing since she arrived at, we've been discussing it since I arrived at City Hall. She's been discussing it with folks since she arrived at City Hall. These are, Stacy, I'll let you explain.
No, as mentioned in the footnotes, Devin drafted the MO for us, although we discussed it. The city's bid limit has been at $10,000 since 1992, so 30 years. And since then, the state has increased their bid limit under KRS 424-260, which is what we follow, up to $20,000, and then again in 2019 to $30,000. So, due to keeping in line with that, that KRS, which is referenced in our purchasing policy, and also to relieve a little bit of the burden of having to go out to bid, we will still use the formal quote process. It doesn't require the newspaper advertisement. So we will still have formal quotes for items from 10, I believe it's 10, let me do that again. 15,000 to 30,000. We adjusted a few of the other limits as well, as you can see on page 2. Small purchases 0 to 5,000, informal 5,001 to 15,000, formal quotes $15,000 to $29,999. Formal newspaper advertised bid, $30,000 and above. So it just takes a few of those strings off as far as newspaper advertisements and a lot of the having to submit a bid bond and a lot of the different requirements, insurance requirements, some of the other things that we require from our bids.
The other thresholds other than 30,000, that one's obvious, that's just state law. The other thresholds really do cause staff some difficulty in terms of you need to get something done and getting 3 different prices. We think we can follow these guidelines and be very efficient, but ease the burden of procurement just a little bit.
Since we don't have a procurement department, obviously I handle all the bids, but our departments handle getting all of their quotes and doing all of that themselves. So it will relieve a little bit of burden on them as well. We have a couple of online things. Obviously, we do our bids online. We still do the newspaper advertisement, but then they do have a GovQuote website that we utilize for some of those quotes. So we'll just continue being able to do that for some of their formal quote processes. It sets a deadline, and then companies can submit quotes through that.
And some of y'all that have been here longer than I have, this stint can help me with the history of how it got this way or why it got this way, but we think it's time to come to a more normal order of business.
It got this way for council to have more oversight on what was going on, because things were going on, things were going on that wasn't brought in front of the council because of the threshold and wasn't having the transparency that it needed. So dropping the price, dropping all that made it harder and made the transparency have to be there. So that is basically why the time that I can remember being on the council.
So that is what that municipal order is all about.
Can I just say something in saying that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stacy, but don't you have other things implemented to where people are looking at it, that the transparency within your office is pretty
We
clear?
have multiple levels for approval. This would change, the mayor and I both have to approve anything over 5,000. Any purchase order over 5,000 comes through me, then the mayor. Of course, you all will continue to get your check reports, and then we obviously cannot purchase anything that's not budgeted. You all set the budget, and the mayor and his designees have the authority to spend that budget, but obviously, like with anything else, any purchase that's not budgeted, regardless of dollar amount, we would still have to come get council approval for, so it would only be for those items already budgeted.
It would change it that if it was make sure I'm right, that if it's an item over $10,000, that the mayor or you or whoever wanted to budget, if it's over that, but under the 30,000, then you can go, if that line item's in the budget, then you can go on and spend it without bringing that directly back to the council to make the approval.
Not if there's not money in the budget.
Well, it didn't say that, but if it's,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that we don't have the authority to bid to, regardless of what the bid limit is, we don't have the authority to spend money that's not budgeted. There's some limited approvals where the departments can move up to 10,000 between their line items, but that's it. We can't move money from one department to another or one fund to another, and we can't. The only outlier would be an emergency, a true emergency, which we would then bring to council retroactively to approve.
That actually, when I was mayor, I had made a mistake and actually went ahead and spent the money that was over $10,000, and without the council's approval, when came back and realized it was over the $10,000, and I had to come back and beg for their mercy.
Yeah.
But bottom line was, I was going to pay for the extra if the council didn't approve it, because it was my mistake, but, yeah.
And then we have budget locks in our accounting software where our departments can't go over their line items. And again, like I said, both myself and the mayor's office have to approve.
I think it's worth noting that we're one of the few cities that I'm aware of where council approves items in a budget and subsequently has to approve items, purchases We're not arguing that practice should go away, we're simply arguing that $10,000 is a very low threshold, and it should match what's in the state bidding limit.
$2,000 not a lot today's standards.
No.
Mayor, I'll make the motion, Mayor.
I'll second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the municipal order. Excuse me, if there are no more questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Item 11 on the agenda under fire department is a municipal order approving the purchase of a leased fire truck. Chief?
Yeah, as most of you know, our fleet's been a challenge to manage here lately between accidents and breakdowns. We've had to seek assistance via a lease. We initially entered into a 45-day lease thinking we could have some repairs done on 2 apparatus. We received word that they expected to be done in the middle of this month with 1 repair on our engine that was involved in a wreck. However, the ladder truck that has been giving us fits for a while, the repairs on it, they're estimating the parts to be mid-June, so no quick resolve on that. So we applied the Band-Aid, kind of needed an additional Band-Aid, so we were seeking 30 days extension for the lease to give us some flexibilities. And at that point, I just felt like I threw it out there with Andrew and the mayor that, you know, just kind of made good business sense to go ahead and make the purchase. We're almost 15 for us, and that's helped us out in a pinch. And, you know, I just ask that y'all consider making that investment. And whenever we do get right and able to purchase more trucks, we can at least get something back. Anything's possible these days.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Fire committee has been doing some pretty deep work with Chief and his staff, and looking at apparatus needs, and we'll be having more information for you soon. But needless to say, those are major investments, and we're looking at some work on our fleet now.
Thank you.
Item 12 on our agenda under police department is a meeting.
I think it's just 5. They're about, it's a little over 5, I think. There were new officers, so they had to get them for the new officers. Sole source contract through AMK, and they do have it budgeted, so.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Thank you.
Second, Mayor.
Any second? Thank you. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I did appreciate that, how detailed they were with the single source vendor documentation. You know,
Rick does a great job with that.
Yeah.
Always has.
That protects us in that manner. So, let's see, that completes the printed part of our agenda. Also, in the interest of always keeping council kind of up to date on what to anticipate and what is next, we have, Chase and his board have been working diligently on the issue concerning wastewater plant number 1 and what the large change order might look like. And I believe at our meeting on April the 25th, you will hear those details. So we will hear that information, hear that presentation, and be in a position to act on that information at the next meeting. So, tell you that we're still on that schedule, Chase.
Yes, sir. I'll present that to the board next week, and be ready to present to council the following week, pending board approval or any actions they take. But a good informational update at minimum, but I anticipate that I will ask for council action on a change order.
Thank you. We've been waiting for this, and we're now prepared for the next meeting. Let's see, Todd? Start with you, Don.
Okay.
I decided just to start in the middle of the road, just to surprise everybody.
Only thing I've got is, this week is National Telecommunicators Week. Police dispatchers for those who, Tammy and Connie are going through the Citizens Police Academy. They will undoubtedly hear some audio from them. And for those who have been in bad situations and have somebody on the other end, they do a great job. It is they're always the last one thought of, right, Nick and Eric? So, you know, everybody thinks when something bad goes on, police officer needs, you know, time off for this, the firefighter needs time off for this. They never think about the dispatcher because they're the ones that can sit there and do nothing but listen. So, for them to be honored this week, that's a great thing, and I'm proud to have a lot of them that are free. So, that's all I got.
Thank you.
You know what, Mayor, I'm good, thank you.
I'm gonna get everybody.
Just trying to confuse you.
One issue, since we're just talking about streets, the Staples have asked about the street signs out there. Are they the reflective, have they been all replaced and being the high reflective street signs or not?
I'll have to check on that, I'm not sure, it depends whether they're the decorative type signs that some of the neighborhoods used, or if they're the city signs, they will have them.
Okay. Well, then the next question, and this might be decorative, I have to go back out there and see, but they asked about if the city would put lights so that you can see the street signs. And I said, well, I don't think the city's gonna do that, but, so they wanna know if they did it. You know how you see the little lights that actually shine on the street name and the street light? And I said, well, I'd have to bring it to council and see what the council said about it. Or not something.
We'd certainly consider it, I don't know any of the details.
Like a little solar light that
Yeah, I
says.
don't know the,
I'd hate to attend that homeowners association. Where they discuss.
I don't think the city would do it, but it's just, it doesn't give them permission for them to do it.
Right.
So, that's the question, if they decide to do it, can they do it? So, look into that and see if
Sure.
it's a possibility.
Yeah,
That's it.
Thank you. Willa?
Yeah, this seems like a strange comment, but every time I go into Lowe's, I feel good because everybody in there is trying to make improvements. They want to improve their roof, they want to improve their plumbing, they want to improve their gardens, and I just feel good about tonight's meeting because we've been getting a lot of civic engagement through letters that people have been writing us, and we had the Amen House and Elizabeth Village come, and we've been hearing from other philanthropies. And I just think that civic engagement and public engagement is essential to good governance, and I think it's wonderful that people are caring enough to lend their voice to what they feel needs are that can help the most vulnerable. And I think we've done a good job of listening in the past and of giving in the past, and I know we have a unique opportunity to look at some of these ARPA funds and see if we can't make some one-time donations. I also realize that the needs are infinite and the funds are finite, and not all needs can be met, but I find the engagement of the public with ideas to meet needs and to partner with us is, it's a good meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
I'm good, thank you.
you're good, okay. Mark?
I'm good.
You're good. Tammy?
Just one thing, Eddie, the gas company was by on my street this week,
Okay.
marking for the sidewalk project.
Yeah,
So you're getting that underway.
right, the contractors call in what they call a bud ticket, and they mark all the locations of utilities that they might run into when they're digging, and so, yeah, I think they're get started with that.
It's good to hear.
We've got a whole bunch that, we've given our contractors a long list.
Yeah,
of,
I'm glad to see that starting, so,
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're excited about it.
and that's all.
Thank you. Boy, appreciate Todd bringing up the telecommunicators week, and for those of you that do go through the Citizens Place Academy, what drove us to make that investment, however many $1 million it was, and how many radios it was on, was a dispatch tape. It's not from someplace else, it's from right here,
Yes.
towards Scott County. Where they couldn't talk, dispatch couldn't talk to the sheriff's officers right on the edge of town. And they were chasing somebody, and they couldn't talk to the officers, and the fear and
I'll give you
the voices.
I remember that.
We knew then that it didn't matter how big that check was, we had to write it. And so, appreciate you mentioning that.
October 28th of '97, I had a wreck out on 460.